apologies to the listeners yet again for the absence of a much hyped special guest. Huevos Concave, the inventor of Chimp paste. I booked him under the impression that he had innovated a paste for chimps, and it turns out it's a paste of chimps. And I've got animal cruelty like Peter and all that, like I've got them hanging over my head, and considering I already made those bricks out of geese, I've just got to, I can't take chances.
Well, don't stress about it. I did see the message in the chat that Chimp paste wasn't going to work out.
Yeah.
So I'll bring him over in a second. I got Grimble Shimble over, the inventor of Chimp Gel, which I have been assured is gel for chimps as opposed to made out of chimps.
That is gel for the application of chimps.
You apply the gel to the chimps.
Right. Thank God. So, Grimble Bimble, it's great to have...
Grimble Shimble.
My apologies, Grimble Shimble, sorry.
Yeah, get it right.
Sorry. Craig, you handed me the wrong notes, you cunt! I will discipline the intern who handed me the wrong notes. Could you tell us a little bit about how you came to create such a fascinating product in chimp gel?
Well, I saw a hole in the market.
Mm-hmm.
No one's making gel for chimps.
No, they're not.
Went in me Sainsbury's, couldn't find gel for chimps nowhere. So I made gel for chimps.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about the interesting side effect, the sort of UV protection inherent in chimp gel, which I have been told is industrial grade?
Well,
that's not depriving chimps of sunlight, is it?
Well, no, you need the UV protection because the gel does generate a lot of UV.
Well,
so we had to put the UV protection in so that when it generated considerable amounts of UV, the chimp just didn't disintegrate on the spot.
Yeah. And presumably, what people in the press have called radiation, that's just the UV.
That's just a healthy glow.
Counter.
That's just a healthy glow.
Yeah,
that's a healthy glow. You want your chimp to have a healthy glow.
And those chimps look incredibly healthy. They've got, glossy hair. They seem active. All three of their eyes are bright and glossy. Like
you have never seen a chimp as energized as a gelled chimp. They cannot wait to get moving.
And I think that really is the message we're here to send. Gel your chimps, folks. Gel your chimps.
By the time I'm done, it will be illegal not to gel your chimps.
Thank you very much, Grimble Shimble, for joining us. I have been watching videos about bad bastards owning monkeys and chimps. It turns out that most owners of exotic pets are wankers.
You don't say.
Yeah, but it did get me thinking. A horror game where you are being pursued by angry chimps would be fucking terrifying. If they're like bursting in through windows to come and beat your face in, throw a dog at you. Multiple stories about chimps throwing dogs, which I understand would be horrifying if you saw it in real life. However, if a chimp threw a dog at our friend Jonathan, hypothetically, I think that would be a sight to see. Anyway, Conrad, stop talking about chimps. We've got to move on.
I'm sorry, I've really gone off the rails here.
I know, yeah, you've got your little chimp fascination. I mean, well, you've got your subscription to Chimp Fancy monthly. Fantastic, I just read them for the articles. Before we crack on, I do need to talk about the fact that quite a few episodes of this podcast are not available on Spotify at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm fucking furious at this. I don't necessarily care from the perspective of a podcaster. I don't think we get enough listeners through Spotify that it's going to do any harm.
You don't think that, like, 3-year-old gaming news specifically on Spotify that you could go and find on SoundCloud is going to be, like, the career-ruining impact that we fear?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go the way Chimp Paste did. But, you know, I feel bad insofar as anyone who was listening via Spotify, that sucks for them. And I'm very sorry about that, genuinely. And I'm more just disgusted at Spotify for two main reasons. One is the way they went about it, which I will talk about in a sec. The other is the fact that Gavin told them I can use the music. When I got the email from Spotify, I messaged former Podquisition co-host and still to this day friend of myself and Laura and of the show, Gavin, aka Miracle of Sound, telling him that Spotify was threatening to remove episodes of this show because of his music being included. And he immediately was like, I'm sorry about that. I will get management to notify them. I've been copied in on the email. Someone got back to them with, I'll just check in on this. And nothing else happened in that thread until Gab's management replied again with, yeah, there's about an hour to go on this. And then I got an email an hour later from Spotify telling me that they'd removed about 133 episodes, I think, of this show. Now, that's obviously fucking grotesque. I have explicit permission from Gav to use that song, the one you hear at the start of every episode, which I guess this week we'll do fucking, I don't know, a Beatles song, something that isn't so stringently protected. You know, a bit of Elton John, something like that. I'm fucking furious that they were notified and they just ignored it when they were the ones that imposed such a harsh time limit on all of this. And they don't have the fucking decency to get back to a direct express permission on time. And that's the other bit that disgusts me, is how SoundCloud went about this, which I personally feel is a deliberate way to set podcasters up to fail so that Spotify has less work to do. So that they don't have to go through the appeals process of so many people. Because what they did was 24 hours before the podcasts were taken down, they said, you have 24 hours to appeal every single one of the podcasts we flagged, manually and individually. And I was just wrapping up the edit on the Jimquisition at the time, like doing the final draft. I was exhausted. I was like, my chronic pain was really fucking bad that day. I genuinely could not do it. I could not sit here and go through that many episodes and, you know, surely counting. And it really was. You have to go one by one, clicking on each individual link and appealing them all manually. And to not warn you this was happening, to not warn until 24 hours, is so unreasonable and, in my opinion, tactical. I think that was a tactical move to fuck people, and that is gross.
Well, it's funny. It's one of those situations where you're providing the platform for service for which you are also producing content that you own. So by making things harder for smaller companies, individuals, to keep up with the bureaucracy, you're just consolidating the amount of content that's on the platform while still getting to act like you are this free space for people to use and grow and make money, when really what you're doing is making sure that you're the one who makes all the money. Mm-hmm.
And when I saw it, one of the reasons I just thought, you know what, I'm not doing this. Well, one of the reasons I wasn't going to sit there and do it is because I knew they'd reject it without any official backup. I knew I'd waste my time. And more to the point, yeah, it was 133 episodes. Every episode uses Miracle of Sound.
Yeah.
What episode are we up to right now? Nearly 1,000.
More than 130.
Yeah. I am not doing it. And the other reason is I emotionally and intellectually have disengaged from YouTube after years of what I consider very abusive business practices. I've said many times, if YouTubers had even a fraction of the basic protections of employees, YouTube would be guilty of multiple... Well, bankrupt, yeah. But they would have broken so many fucking laws. The whole website would be fucking illegal. I disengaged from that, once it was clear that my channel was a dead end. It's purely a place to throw the videos up now for the people who are still watching. And that's as far as I ever want to be invested. I'm not interested in growing anything on there because most of the earth on YouTube is salted. And I also don't want to start using words like unalived and cancelling life subscription when I'm talking about serious fucking topics.
Oh God, what we have allowed our need to adhere to the algorithm to do to language and this that's the 1984 shit.
Yeah, I have a Jimquisition script in the works for it. And I make that point, people casually use references to 1984 for a lot of things, but this is so genuinely newspeak. This is not just in terms of making people change their words, but the reasons for it are the same. The sanitization and the removal of bad think is the same. As I say in the script I'm writing, and I'll say it here as well, some of the stuff that people are volunteering their compliance for is genuinely disturbing, especially in the context of the current political state of affairs. I watched a video that was talking about a book set during the Holocaust, and they would not say the word Holocaust, and they would not say the word Nazi.
Oh.
And that sent a chill down my fucking spine. And I should say, some of this is because of YouTube, and some of this is volunteered compliance on the part of creators who are now so paranoid that a chilling effect is in place. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. I'm disgusted at YouTube, and to be honest, while I understand and sympathise with a lot of content creators who are worried and who rely on this stuff for an income, I am disgusted at some of them for some of what they are saying. I understand if you are worried about saying the word dead. Saying unalived is sick. And fuck you for that. We already have passed away. Also, we don't need to, get that cutesy with it. It's not appropriate. But yeah, in a world where a man can throw up a Nazi salute and people will vehemently deny he did it, there is something utterly chilling about a huge platform like YouTube where the word Nazi has been scrubbed from the language. Yeah. That is newspeak.
Yeah. Welcome to Podquisition.
We covered a lot of ground in...
Yeah, we did.
in that cold open there.
We did.
You know what else we did? We played video games, probably. Indeed. I mean, I played video games. I don't know if either of you played video games.
I played a game.
Mostly just 2 Point Museum. Have I talked about the Croc remaster? Because I could do that later.
You've not talked about the Croc remaster. We could do that this week.
Remaster, yeah.
I'm just drafting doing the final draft of the review on that. However, Laura, I know you have a metric jizz ton of stuff.
I have played a pretty big amount of stuff that, you know, all in all turned out to be about 4 hours of stuff. I got a chance to fuck around with that Switch too.
You did.
This past week. I definitely won a ticket to that raffle to go try the Switch 2, and didn't get a very nice email from a Podquisition listener who said, hey, I know these tickets aren't transferable, but I've got one. Do you want it?
You did like everyone else. You got out of your bed with your grandparents in it and your uncles and your aunts.
I bought one chocolate bar and found the golden ticket.
Yeah. And then Gene Wilder did a forward roll.
Yeah. I ran home singing I won a golden ticket. It was great.
Really a shame what happened to all those other kids, though.
Oh, well, I mean, look, it's not my fault that one of them got trapped between the Switch 2 and the Joy-Con and the magnet crushed them. Like, so yeah, I got to fuck around with the Switch 2 for a bit.
Yeah.
And, I don't know where to start with this. I think the easiest place to start is, fundamentally, it is a slightly fancier Switch. Like, there's no getting around that.
Yeah.
It is...
I am fine
It's
with
another...
it.
It's... Yeah. And, like, that's what I want it to be. And I do think... I think just saying it's a fancier Switch, I think there's some nuance to it. I was surprised how much, on first impressions, it felt very much like the existing Switch. It is the same thickness and about the same weight. So despite it being a larger screen, it's one of those, like, I've travelled... I always hesitate to bring my Steam Deck when I'm travelling, just because the way it's built makes it a much bigger percentage of a bag to take it with me. The Switch 2 being the same very flat profile, it's gonna be way easier to take along than something like the ROG Ally or Steam Deck when I'm travelling. It keeps that, I could throw this in a bag and it doesn't take up the whole bag kind of vibe.
Well, and you can also just take the Joy-Cons off, and now you have a more configurable collection of parts to arrange.
Exactly.
You know, not one solid unit.
Yeah, on that front, I understand less about how magnets work than I did a week ago.
Huh.
Because, if you hold, like, a current Switch, there's a little bit of wiggle in the Joy-Cons on the rails. Like, it's not a lot, but there's, like, you can feel that it's some separate things you've slid on the side of the thing. These magnets work great. I don't understand quite how they work, because the new Joy-Cons just, like, very solidly magnet in, and I was encouraged by a person on the booth to be like, yeah, try just yanking it off. Try, like, using force to yank it off. Could not do so. Press the little button that, like, pops out a tiny little bit of plastic at the top of the Joy-Con and, like, pushes into the rail. Comes off super easily. I don't understand why I can't pull it off at full force, but one little bit of plastic poke in the top, and a very, like, easy button press, and it just comes off. I don't get how magnets work anymore.
Laura, I'm not saying that I'm going to ask Conrad to provide me an edit of the last 3 minutes of what you've been saying for my own private use. However...
yeah, they work really well in the, like, the whole thing feels like a very sturdy unit when the controllers are magneted on. It does feel like one...
A sturdy unit, sorry. As soon as you said, you know what I'm like, as soon as you said yank it off the first time, now I'm seeing innuendo in everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
Interestingly, this is interesting for reference for, like, particularly if you've got, like, kids around and are worried about them, like, fucking the thing up. You can put these Joy-Cons on sideways, you can put them on the wrong sides of the Switch, you can put them on upside down, and they will still magnet into place and be totally fine.
Oh.
Like, all the magnet rails are completely symmetrical, so you can put the Joy-Cons on completely the wrong way around on the wrong side, and it won't fuck anything up.
That's genuinely interesting.
Right, like, that's a neat little bit of detail, and, like, I'm curious if there's going to be games that try and, like, take advantage of that, like, you deliberately put the Joy-Cons on back to front, you're playing, but someone looking from the other side can see the screen. I don't know if that's possible, but it's the first thing that I thought about. So this is the thing, like, before I get into any of the games, the thing that I think you might find interesting, Steph, most of Nintendo's first-party games that I got a chance to play at this event had a thing that I know has been annoying you this generation, which is modes where you choose between graphics and frame rate.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to annoy you in this context, because the difference is, every time Nintendo's first-party games offered it, they've got a 120 FPS screen on this thing. The choices were 4K 60 or 1080p 120. It was graphics versus performance, but the graphics version was still hitting 60. It was, do you want to sacrifice, go down to 1080p to have 120 FPS going on your handheld, which is the full resolution of the handheld screen.
Yeah. I do much prefer that, because that gives you a sense of upgrade either way. Whereas, with the, do you want to go from 60 to 30? It's like, do you want to go from what I consider to be the fucking standard to substandard? Whereas this is, do you want to stay at standard and boost this, or do you want to stay at standard the other way round and boost the other thing? That is going up. There's nothing going down. And yeah, I like that.
That's sort of where I feel. And at the very least, even if I'm playing, Mario Kart on the handheld at 1080p, 120 FPS, that is a higher frame rate than I'd have been playing Mario on the last gen, a higher resolution, and a higher frame rate. And I'm like, oh cool, I feel like I'm just all wins. That 120 FPS screen's real nice. The main one I got a chance, the main ones I got a chance to play at 120 FPS were Mario Kart World and Metroid Prime 4. And both of those feel like... I think this is a way smarter place to be putting performance power in a handheld than resolution. Because at 1080p, both of those games still looked great, and ran smooth as anything. A little bit of talk about some of the actual games I played. Mario Kart World, that is the first party launch title for the thing. The mode that I am excited for, and the thing that I think I got really into, is knockout mode, knockout tour. It's sort of a battle royale mode Grand Prix, where you're dropped into you're gonna race from one side of this fictional country to another, and you're gonna do 5 or 6 races with roads in between them. But every now and then there'll be a checkpoint, and it'll be hey, you start with 24 races. By the time you get to this checkpoint, the sixth in the lowest positions get kicked out the race. And then another 6 are going to get kicked off at this checkpoint. And it's a good 15-minute long race with no pauses of trying to stay just above the knockout threshold. And because it's Mario Kart, it has a lot of mechanics built around rubber banding to keep everyone relatively within the pack. And the way that they seem to have balanced it is not only if you're at the back of the pack do you get better items, but if you're far enough back that you just happen to not be in the qualifying position for the next threshold, it'll start giving you catch you the hell up items. So constantly you are in threat of one really bad thing hitting you could put you in danger, one really good thing could get you back into consideration. And the 30 seconds or so of I know another checkpoint's coming up gets really frantic and chaotic. I did not expect to be as tensely engaged in Mario Kart as I was in this mode. It feels really good. I'm real into it. Other than that, I got some chances to play around with, I'll leave some of these until later, but the other one I'll talk about up front is I got to play Metroid Prime 4, which was the big game that I got a chance to try out mouse mode with, where you take one of your Joy-Cons and turn it sideways to use it like a PC mouse for, in this case, a shooter. Putting aside comfort, and I'll talk about comfort at the end, this thing works way better as a highly responsive mouse than I expected it to. I could tell that the Nintendo reps were proud of the mouse mode stuff in Metroid. As soon as I sat down, they were oh, just so you know if you want to know, there's mouse sensitivity options in this game. Try whacking it up. Completely unnecessarily high sensitivity is available for this game. Metroid Prime is as much a strategy adventure as it is a shooter. You can turn the mouse controls up on this as if you're trying to do, like, 360 no-scope spin-around multiplayer shit. It took me a bit of getting used to using it as a mouse, because the way I was playing this was left Joy-Con, I'm using, as an analog stick to walk around. The right-hand one I've turned on its side, I'm using my two fingers as the left and right click to do shooting my lasers and my missiles. But my thumb was kind of naturally resting near the analog stick, and it took me a minute to get out of my head the idea that I should be using that analog stick to turn my character. Because thumb near analog stick just naturally feels like I should be doing that. It took a minute to get that out my head. There were certain actions I found easier to do not in mouse mode, like scanning things with my visor to get new information. I do really like that you don't have to go into a menu or anything to change away from mouse controls back to normal controls. If you just pick the mouse Joy-Con up and hold it like you would a normal controller, instantly it's back into use it like a normal controller mode. If you want to go back to mouse mode, you just put it down and instantly it's a mouse again. And that ability to situationally just swap between the two was really nice. There's a few things about it that, like, initially felt unintuitive just because they are not how everything has trained me to play games. That took a little getting my head around. Like, I ultimately really like this. The game, much like the older Metroid Primes, you can lock onto targets with the left trigger. And if you do that, you can use your analog stick to strafe around an enemy and be using the mouse to, like, aim at specific body parts rather than the mouse turning your camera perspective. And that works really nice. Like, there was a boss fight in the demo that was an enemy with multiple weak points on it, and I was strafing around it and then using the mouse to, like, aim at the weak points I wanted to precisely shoot. That feels great. It does take a minute to get your head around the mouse is working in two different ways in rapid succession. And all of these things felt great once I got my head around this isn't normally how games on console work, and I have to set that aside. I did test using the mouse Joy-Con on just my trouser leg to be like, yeah, if I'm just sat on the sofa, will this be doable? Yeah, I was just wearing like very plain black leggings. Totally worked just fine as a mouse on my leg, which is good. I don't see myself playing a lot of this at a desk, but I'm glad that if I'm sat on the sofa, I can still use the mouse controls for stuff. Yeah, both Mario Kart and Prime 4 looked great at 120 FPS, and it was nice playing Nintendo first-party games that in some ways felt technologically ambitious. I don't remember the last time that I played something on a Nintendo platform and went, yeah, maybe I'm not playing this, with 4K and all the visual bells and whistles that I might on a PS5, but it looks good enough, and running at 120 FPS feels really fucking nice in the hand. I know that the PS5 in theory can do 120 FPS for some games. I don't have a 120 FPS TV hooked up to play it with. I'm excited to play 120 FPS Nintendo games that feel really responsive.
Nintendo always tries to be, like, innovative, and every, like, console maker does, but Nintendo's the one that isn't typically innovative in the ways that the others veer towards. So it is a little bit weird hearing Nintendo go in that, like, graphics performance direction in a way that feels like they care about that, as opposed to in the past.
Yeah. Indeed. Those were the first two things I played, and both of them gave me, like, a really solid first impression of the system. I was like, they're not going out of their way to push so many graphical features that the game can't run at a stable frame rate. Their first-party stuff they've put their first foot forward with really seems to be, let's work out what is doable at a high level of performance, put that front and center, and give you new ways to interact with it that are gonna take a second to get used to, but genuinely might be really cool. So yeah, that was the first couple of things I played on Switch 2, and I've got some things that I have slightly more complicated thoughts on, but those first couple of games had me pretty excited. What about both of you? What have you been playing this week?
So I have been playing a horror RPG called Look Outside. This came out, I think, a couple of weeks ago. It's published by Devolver, and it's a survival horror adventure. There is some sort of strange astronomical event happening outside, and you are very early, well, at the beginning of the game, you have a compulsion to look outside, and then you're warned by your creepy neighbor who's looking into your bedroom through a hole in the wall not to do it. And it seems that anybody who is exposed to this phenomenon begins to change in horrific ways. And it's not entirely consistent how they change, which is creepy as hell, but they start to like get mutations and things like that, and they lose their minds. And you are trapped in your apartment building with them for the next 15 days until the event is expected to conclude.
I'm on the hook with this idea.
It's great. It's presented in a low-resolution sprite pixel art style. As you explore the apartment building, there's a ton of stuff to examine. There's a lot of stuff to pick up, tons of resources. There is a crafting system, but it's one of those where you don't know what the result of combining your items is going to be until you've made it. It does provide some guidance in the sense that you will select a first item and then it will give you a list of other compatible items. So you're not going to like waste stuff. You're still going to produce something, but it has that tension of, am I going to waste resources that are going to be much more useful in some other application sense to it, which is both terrifying and enjoyable to experience. I guess it makes me not want to do it. But that's my hang up. That's not the game's problem. They're presenting me with a solution that I'm too scared to use. In order to survive the 15 days, you're going to have to venture out. And outside of your apartment, there are things happening. People are in the halls, and you have encounters with characters. And I call them encounters because the other perspective that the game provides you is when you engage directly with a character or characters that you have met on the overworld in some fashion. And it's a Dragon Quest style first-person interface for combat. And, you know, with selection options. If someone is non-aggressive, they'll just start talking to you. And you get options other than fight or escape. If they're clearly aggressive, you get fight or escape. But that could change on a dime, especially since one of the options on your list at all times is attack. You always have the choice to attack any of the NPCs in the game, which is very interesting. The bodies of people that you have combat encounters with and kill remain in the game for seemingly the totality, which is interesting. The combat itself it's a relatively simple turn-based type thing, but it has some nuance and depth. There's a foreground and a background. Often enemies start in the background and have to move close enough to you for melee to be effective. But you do have ranged options. There are a lot of throwable items that you pick up, and very quickly you get access to a firearm. So that's neat. Also, an element of the combat that is cool is that the longer it goes, the more the enemies themselves will visually change. during the course of it and become more horrific looking, and I'm assuming more dangerous, but I don't know. I'm playing it on easy because I can't hang with this. I'm gonna be, if I'm constantly on the verge of death in a situation like this, I'm not gonna be able to progress. I'll get paralyzed. So I'm playing it on easy, and I'm not ashamed of it, especially since that is presenting a seemingly healthy challenge in the combat. I'm coming out of combat encounters thinking, gosh, I need to heal. So there's still tension, and that's good. There are a lot of weird characters that you can meet, people who have had some exposure to the outside, and it's always questionable what their behavior is going to be. You never really know what you're getting into in a conversation, and that's cool. Characters have subquests that they can give you to, like, hey, can you go get my laundry from the laundry room on the first floor, to I need a baby. So yeah, the sound design is, oh my god. Did I mention a baby? Because there's a baby, and that baby makes baby noises. It makes a lot of baby noises.
The baby to make baby noises.
And if you should happen to pick up this baby, and then for, I don't know, some reason, non-specific reason, you might decide, maybe I shouldn't have picked up this baby, and you put that baby down, that baby will follow you. That baby will follow you. Oh, it's really creepy. The decisions feel like they have weight that you aren't going to know the consequences of for some time. You can get a party of characters. You will have people knock on your door at night and, might ask for help, or offer you an opportunity to buy items from them. You can let people stay in your apartment, and then they can become part of your party and travel with you as you go and explore and have to deal in combat, and they are useful. And you get to have conversations with them like, so did you look outside? And they will tell you their answer, and then you have to make decisions about how you feel about that going forward.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot here. It's really, really good. I was playing it on my stream yesterday. Casey Explosion popped in, and if Casey Explosion is your barometer, she's been pretty hooked on it too, apparently. I am liking this game a lot. It is really, really creepy, and I want to know where it's going. And it is one of those things too where, time exists. And the time system is, I have my quibbles. Like, it tells you it's evening. Evening to me means I should start getting ready to think about going to bed. But they mean it's 4 p.m. And so, but it's fine because there are things you can do at your apartment, like play video games. And now you're not actually, there's no mini game in there. It's your character is spending time playing a game, but it improves stats that seem important, like how calm you are and your morale. When you make food at your stove and eat it, if you have people staying with you, everybody eats. And you get an increase to your social statistic. And maybe you get an interesting encounter, like one of the people who's staying with you starts just setting things on fire. And you get to decide how you want to address that. Normal stuff.
Yeah. Mate, this
Truly,
sounds incredible.
Truly an incredible game. Content warnings for teeth and eyes. And it's only $10 too. Like, it's a value proposition from my perspective. I feel like I have gotten a great deal out of it, and I am on day 4 of 15. Oh, yeah. A lot happening here. A lot of, just a lot of opportunity to discover what's going on. Really inventive ideas. Very inventive enemy and character designs. And deeply uncomfortable situations. Things that you shouldn't do, but you can't resist the allure of doing it. And you were right you were right in both respects in some cases. It was the right thing to do, but also, maybe that wasn't the right thing to do. Great game. I'm having a lot of fun. With Look Outside. Yeah. Oh, also, you can look outside anytime you want. If you want to look outside, you can. And I will say, there's an animation. Right, yeah.
Oh,
what
I'm
about
looking
you?
it up. Visually, this is strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is distinct.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm picking this
I will
up.
say, it is a PC game. It was not designed for a controller. There is a layout, I think, on Steam that makes that easier. But like it's one of those situations where the menu button is going to be the same as the cancel button because they're both escape, right?
Right.
And so the binding can feel a little fiddly, but other than that, one critique, and I suspect it feels like such an ideal fit for Switch that I can't help but think that Devolver has people working to get a port for this onto Switch.
Yeah.
And that will be resolved in an update, but that's the only little technical quibble I have with it. It's funny, games like this that don't have controller support often don't have lots of the other niceties in terms of is it full screen or not? Does audio work outside of active window? Little things like that don't you expect if it doesn't have controller support, there are going to be these other quality of life things that don't exist. No, all of that shit's there. That shit's there. It's fine. It's seemingly just controller. So, yeah. Yep. Good game.
What about you, Steph? What have you been playing?
So it's been mostly 2 Point Museum, of course.
Yeah.
Still just in awe of it. There's a reason I did a freaking 20-minute video on it this week, just talking about the value prospect of it, if nothing else, the amount it's doing and has going on. I've been obsessively playing it now for comfortably over a week. There's so much more to do. There is so much more I can do. I don't feel pressured to do it, which is why I don't say I've got, it's so much more to do. It is so much more I can get my hands on. Across all 6 of the museum themes, I've barely scratched the surface of the space exhibits. So many of those are cheese-themed as well. There's a machine that people put cheese down and a space slug comes out and it eats the cheese. No. They put down some... Yeah, unrefined cheese they put down. The slug comes out, eats it, and the look he gives as he makes eye contact with the guest and poos out a little block of cheese for them to eat is a thing of beauty. I've unlocked the copy blight tree, which is a giant, weird, mutant jelly tree with an eye stalk, and people stand in front of it and it looks them up and down, and then it opens up and a blue gelatinous clone of them steps out and starts mimicking their movements. I've got a plant in the shape of a bat that embraces people and turns them into vampires, and they get more excited about supernatural exhibits. The fish stuff it's fish. I can make aquariums. There is an entire game in just the aquariums. There is an entire game in just any one of the themes. I don't even know if I've gotten halfway through all of the things I could unlock. I don't even know if I've gotten halfway through. And I had to look the price up again for the script. And my jaw dropped when I saw it was $30. Because I got the Explorer edition, well worth $40. Worth more than $40 if we judge on content. In my mind, I forgot that that's what I did, and I thought it was $40. And then when I found out it was actually the MSRP is $10 cheaper. And we are looking at, modern games charging $70. Knocking on now $80. They're all hoping GTA 6 charges $100. And I get this for $30. And I have put more into this, and I have gotten more joy from this than I think any major big publisher-backed game. Probably since Astrobot. And even then, I didn't get the time out of Astrobot that I got out of this. $30. I'm in awe. Genuinely. Yeah.
Couple of other bits I've been playing from that Switch 2 event. I've got a couple of others that I want to talk about in some reasonable depth. I played some of a digital-only Nintendo-published title called Drag and Drive, or Drag X Drive, which is a wheelchair basketball game. Except Nintendo wouldn't call it that, and I'll get to that at the end. But yeah, this is a game that you play with your two Joy-Cons in sort of mouse mode, and you control it the way that you would a manual wheelchair. You push the right Joy-Con forward, it'll rotate the right wheel. If you push the left Joy-Con, it'll rotate the left wheel. You can push them both forward to go forward, push them in opposite directions to do a sort of pivot on the spot. And it's sort of Rocket League style, arcadey basketball, where you use your wheelchair controls to bash into someone, take the ball, get into position near the net, and then just use motion controls. You pick up your controller, do a throwing motion, try and throw the ball through the basket. There's a bit more to it. I didn't have as much time as I wanted to mess around with this, but I worked out at some point through playing there is a score multiplier trick system, where if you do cool tricks in the air, like you go up the ramp at the side of the court, and while you're in the air you do some spins, you'll get a temporary multiplier that if you then get the basketball through the hoop while the multiplier is still active, you get more points for it. And there's some interesting stuff they're doing in terms of putting pressure on you to act quickly in that regard. If your team takes control of the ball, you have to take a shot on the net within 14 seconds, or your team forfeits possession of the ball. So you are encouraged to, not just hog the ball and keep holding on to it if you're in the lead. You have to be taking shots that obviously help give the other team an opportunity to intercept. But you're encouraged to try and use that, let's say you've just taken possession of the ball from the other team. You are encouraged to use as much of that 14 seconds as you can to try and rack up that multiplier a bit, and take your shot at the net at the last possible second before you lose possession, while obviously risking someone could bash headfirst into you and cause you to lose possession anyway. It's a neat little game, and it controls really intuitively. If it's a bit tiring in the way that playing wheelchair basketball, I imagine, would be, being a largely motion-controlled game about emulating the controls of moving a manual wheelchair. But it was a pretty neat game. There was a lot I liked about it. It was the one title I played during the weekend that felt like it showed off the new Fancy Rumble stuff they've put in the new Joy-Cons. it was the one thing I played where it was like, oh, it kind of reminded me for a second of Astrobot, in that when I'm pushing my controllers forward as if I'm pushing the wheels on the wheelchair, there's this sort of very satisfying clicking feeling as I'm pushing forward that feels like the gear on the wheel rotating around. And like that was nice and satisfying. I will say there was some weirdness around this game, and I verified I'm not the only person who's had this weirdness. So, I'll tell the short version of this story because I'm gonna at some point elaborate on the longer one. But while I was in the line to play this game, a family just ahead of me in line were talking about how cool it was to see a game with characters who were wheelchair users, and the Nintendo rep that was stood next to them said, "Actually, we call them vehicles, not wheelchairs." And while I was playing, I heard another rep say something very similar. So I asked the rep as I was leaving the booth. I was like, "Did I hear you correctly? That like that you are calling them vehicles and not wheelchairs? Is that like the game's term for it?" And his response was, "That's just what I've been told to say." Now, to follow that up, I posted about this, and Chris Scullion, who's another games reporter in the UK, mentioned, "Oh hey, I had this experience too, and not on the Drag and Drive booth. I went and asked a Nintendo rep, was talking to a Nintendo rep somewhere else on the floor at the venue the previous day, and was like, oh yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of a game, it was the wheelchair basketball one. And a rep somewhere, like, not on that booth was like, oh actually, we called it a vehicle, not a wheelchair. So it suggests it was like, all the staff working there were told, like, if someone says wheelchair, you correct them to vehicle. And that's weird.
I am interested to see the coverage of this game in the press.
Well, they can call it a vehicle all they fucking want. If a wheelchair's a wheelchair, we're going to call it a fucking wheelchair.
Yeah, like, I there's a few things I did to check I wasn't, like, off base on this. I went and watched the Nintendo Direct and the gameplay thing from the day after that they did. They never used the word wheelchair. I checked my footage. They never used the word wheelchair in game. I checked the Real World Sport. The Real World Sports, like, their association is the National Wheelchair Basketball Association. I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but it's weird. There might be other explanations. My vibe was, it feels like you think wheelchair is a dirty word.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to acknowledge that you've made a game where some of the characters might be disabled.
Yeah,
and maybe there's another explanation for it, but it feels... Because, like, if they just decided in-game not to use the word wheelchair, that would be one thing. To have told all of their staff, if someone says wheelchair, tell them they should say vehicle instead, that feels, like, more deliberate.
This is one of those things that just makes me have a lot of contempt for Nintendo. Where it's like, why, Nintendo... do you always have to make it weird? That's uncomfortable. And I don't know if they think ignoring the word wheelchair is more comfortable than acknowledging wheelchairs exist. But I'll tell you who else thinks like that. Jim fucking Davidson. You do not want to be in the same boat as Jim fucking Davidson.
Well, yeah, that aside, I had a fun time with Drag and Drive, even if it is a tiring game, but I really enjoy its core concept. It's silly, and I don't know how much content depth there's going to be available there, but I like the core idea. The other first-party one I tried that I had fun with, but I'm concerned I might not be able to have a healthy relationship with, is Donkey Kong Bananza. Which is the new third-person Donkey Kong game, openish area platformer. And the big gimmick for this is destructible environments. Basically, every wall, floor, ceiling of every environment can be punched through. You can rip chunks out of the floor and use them to beat up enemies. You can sort of tunnel through the ground and find secrets and whatnot. And it all feels really satisfying. Like, particularly combat, moment to moment, this is the most fun an Incredible Hulk game has ever been. Like, they do a really good job of making sure that impacts, like, have just the right length of pause to really sort of dramatize the impact in a way that makes you feel very powerful. But the problem is, basically every bit of environment can be destroyed.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long for, like, you decide to punch a random bit of wall just to see, and you find a chest in a wall you weren't expecting, and you didn't see any signs that point you toward the fact there was a treasure chest in the wall. And for me, my obsessive little brain Kremlin starts going, oh, fuck, there could be secrets everywhere, and I don't know, and do I have to destroy every bit of dirt in the entire level that is an frankly impossible task, just in case there's a secret somewhere?
Yeah, I can see how that would stymie a lot of progress in both the game and life.
And there's some tools in place to try and help mitigate that. There is a button you can hold down to just, like, sing a tune, and music notes will go, like, this is the direction to, like, where plot progress is. So you'll never, like, not know where ultimately you should be going. And you can sort of slap the floor with your hands and look around, and let's say there's, like, a big collectible, like, crystal banana somewhere. You'll be able to see that for a few seconds when you slap the ground, even if it's, like, behind a big wall of rock. So, like, for the more important collectibles, you can at least, like, slap the floor and go, is there something nearby around? Oh, there is. Cool, I'll sort of tunnel my way toward it. Which should help with some of that. But I can already feel the obsessive desire to methodically mine out every inch of every level in a way that will not be fun, and that will not let me complete that game. And I don't know from a demo experience whether that will ultimately be something I can have a good time with, or if I will get too obsessed with, yeah, but I gotta check everywhere, though.
Yeah.
It was fun, but I genuinely don't know if I'm going to be able to have a healthy time with it.
That sounds like a laugh. Like, you had me at the comparisons to Incredible Hulk. I do like a game where you can just, like, smash everything up.
Yeah. At its best, it is a game about, like, nothing slows you down. You are very powerful. Like, you see a wall, you just sort of sprint up it, no stamina meter, you just get up there real quick. You can be rolling to sort of build up speed. The second you start punching things, really satisfying, like, chunks fly off everything. Because the environment's so destructible, every time you're, like, throwing, you find something explosive and throw it, fucking chunks go flying everywhere. It feels very good to just sort of run around this world and nothing can stop you, and everything, it's very fun to hit stuff like that. And the animations are gorgeous. They've done great work with these very exaggerated cartoony emotions for Donkey Kong. Like, this feels like the most they've lent into trying to make Donkey Kong one of their, like, A-tier big face characters in a while. I'm gonna need to play the finished thing to know whether I'm gonna have an unhealthy time with it. But yeah, Conrad, you've not played anything else, correct?
No, and unfortunately, I need to leave immediately.
No worries, go deal with stuff.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. What about you, Steph? You played anything else this week?
Yeah, it should hopefully be up by the time this podcast is out. I'm finishing up a draft of my review of Croc, The Legend of the Gobbos. They remastered it for some reason. I talked about this a couple years ago on the podcast when I had my Anbernic, like, little retro emulate handheld. And the main thing I talked about was, of course, the game's fucking tank controls. A mascot platformer with tank controls.
Yes.
It still defies.
This was one of those very early PS1 games where they didn't have analog sticks on all the controllers yet, and they hadn't quite worked out how they wanted to 3D characters yet.
One thing I do say in the review is it is tempting to look at its age for not just stuff like that, but also just how fucking rudimentary this game is. And I have pointed out, a year before Croc came out, like the year before Crash Bandicoot had come out, Super Mario 64, and stuff like that, and looking at Croc, now that, because obviously the remaster has proper grown-up controls. Unless
does that help?
Well, unless you use the D-pad. If you want to have a really bad time, they have the tank controls on the D-pad. And the thing is, the Croc remaster is very interesting because I've never been too fond of it. I've always been fine with admitting that. I think there's a reason it never... It did sell well. It was successful, but it never took off and went down in history like, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, all of that. There is a reason for that. Croc and the Legend of the Gobbos is not a very good game. And I always thought it was a bit humdrum. Now that I've played so much more of it, the remaster was a bad idea because I've gone from not being fond of it to despising it. Because it's so shit.
It's no longer just a vague, kind of positive-ish distant memory, but it's a reality again.
Yeah, I can now appreciate that every single boss is... wait for it to attack and then hit it. Even the final boss is a 3-stage boss where the mechanic is the same. The only thing that changes is how he attacks, but the mechanic exactly the same. The platforming is beyond rudimentary. I've called this game in the review an abundance of nothing. Everything about it is threadbare and sparse. The environments are sparse. The platforming, especially the deeper you get in, more and more just takes place in a featureless void with just platforms floating in nothing. It feels so... well, yeah, the word I use, rudimentary. And it is hard to excuse that when you look at what games were coming out around it. And... fixing the controls only allowed me to focus on the other ways in which the game was deficient. And worse than that, and I'm actually going to do a Jimquisition on this because it got me thinking about not just this game, but some recent other remasters. The new graphics, on their own, are not bad. Combined with a retro game this sparse and rudimentary, they've made Croc look like a shitty Unity asset flip. And it's not because the graphics are bad, and it's not because Croc is a cobbled together asset flip. The combination is the worst thing they could have done for this game is make it look better.
I'm looking at screenshots of it, and being able to see the level more clearly really does make it clearer how much nothing there is going on in it.
They cleaned everything up.
It's weird.
Which means they cleared away any of the detritus that could look like detail. And I've been properly I've been taking lots of comparison screenshots and stuff. And it was such a bad idea. By removing the pixelated effects and the jagginess, they've actually removed a sense of depth, because all they've done, really, is lay new textures on it. Which means the textures they've used are flat. But because they've made them all clean and smooth, it now looks like wallpaper. It looks like what it is, wallpaper with a pattern on it, instead of, the side of a rock. Whereas, and you can switch between the new and the old graphics with a button push. So you can directly see, wow, when I make it look like the PSX game, all of the pixely artifacts and jagginess gives this wall a sense of depth and texture that is not there with the new stuff. And that's a common thing throughout the game. Another point being, there are certain pools of poisonous swamps, and they were made by laying out tiles with a kind of gloopy animation flatly layered on top like a texture. So these texture tiles were put down in the shape of a swamp. And the rippling effects, and a lot of them are like circular rippling effects and bubble effects, are cut off at the edges of these tiles, and they don't line up symmetrically. So you have half circles, like a bubble that's been bisected neatly. When everything is pixely, if you look carefully, you can see it, but you've got to look. When they've removed everything that was hiding that, you're like, oh shit, those are tiles that aren't even lined up properly. It looks bad. This is a game that suffers through its own visual improvement. And it's not the only game I think that's done it, but this one is such an explicit meeting of various elements of like, yeah, when it had retro graphics, even though I think its age is no excuse, it provided some cover for it. It dated it to an appropriate time. But when you look at it and it's trying to look like a modern game while being that sparse and everything, you're like, shit, this looks like a bad ukulele fan game. And other things like Croc and boss characters, their arms especially, but their limbs are segmented. And again, when it looks like a PlayStation game, having an arm that's made out of 2 rectangles is forgivable. When it's made out of 2 really long oblongs, it looks like shit. It looks really bad. And again, it's not necessarily the fault of Argonaut, who did the remaster. It's not their fault in as far as they did a bad job. It's their fault in as far as it's a job they shouldn't have done. That's the thing. I think this game would have come off a lot better. Well, it would have done better if they'd never re-released it at all, and people could just stay with their memories of it. But failing that, they shouldn't have bothered with the remastering, like the visual overhauls. They should have taken the PSX ones, upscaled. Well, they have done that if you press a button and make it retro. And I know they've got to know what they've done, because there is an option, and I like this option. You can toggle the textures and the character models separately. So you could have blocky PSX Croc in the remastered environment and vice versa. And it doesn't look quite as bad when you've got the remastered Croc model in PSX environments. But it still just looks better overall when it looks like how it used to. An interesting thing. But the game itself is shit. It's, I will say it's aggressively mediocre. And I don't think its age is an excuse. Because I'm not going to say they didn't try. But those boss fights especially are abysmal. The finishing blow on a boss fight, there's no death animation, no like fanfare. You score the last hit, Croc stops moving and the boss freezes like a statue. And it's as if the game has crashed. And then you just get the little jingle and the level complete title come up. And it looks unfinished. Same with the I don't think I could call it combat. The tail whip that has no range, it just lures you into taking a hit. But if you hit an enemy with it, there's no impact sound effect. There's no impact effect at all. The enemy just quietly disappears with a little shimmer of stars. And it looks unfinished. It looks like assets are missing.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good game. Not a good game.
That's a shame. Very quickly, while I finish up my rapid fire, seeing a bunch of stuff on Switch 2, the stuff I've got left, I can largely talk about like very rapid fire. The two others that I think are like notable that I saw, Civilization 7. That game is the perfect excuse for why the Switch 2 has a mouse in the Joy-Con. I skipped over this early, and this is probably a better place to talk about this. Having the sideways Joy-Con in your hand as a mouse for something like Metroid Prime 4, it's a little bit awkward. It's thin in the middle of your hand. It's a bit awkward for like doing at speed for like a first-person shooter. I think the control scheme is great, in as much as I am waiting for like a month or two after launch when some third-party company like Hori releases a mouse that connects via Bluetooth that the Switch 2 thinks is a Joy-Con. Like, when that's available, I'm genuinely looking forward to playing first-person shooters on Switch. But for something like Civ, where you're not doing like speedy twitch response controls, being able to just turn a Joy-Con sideways, put it on your leg, and have a mouse pointer to do, like, you know, that genre of, like, grand strategy game on your TV with a mouse, it's going to be a game changer. Like, this is the thing that I think is the Switch 2's, like, little secret weapon, is things like Civilization, ports of The Sims, point-and-click adventure games, anything that's, like, a genre that really wants a mouse and is never quite as good to play on console, is going to find a really good, comfortable home on Switch 2. I played Cyberpunk. I played some of the port of Cyberpunk to the Switch 2.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one, because, you know, with the first Switch, I don't know if you ever played either of these, but the Switch 1 got a couple of ports that were, to put it frankly, ambitious. The Witcher 3 and Doom in particular. I don't know if you ever tried the Switch versions of either of those.
Yeah, I've done Doom for sure.
I would best describe those as, like, it's impressive that they happened, and they're playable, but, like, the compromises were very notable. Cyberpunk feels less compromised on Switch 2 than, like, Doom or The Witcher did on Switch 1. And this was the place where I was like, okay. The thing that was kind of impressive to me was Cyberpunk has a DLC, I forget what it's called, but the DLC never came to last gen. It never came to Xbox One and PS4. It is the most graphically demanding bit of that game. That's the bit they chose for the demo that was at the Switch 2 event. Which, first of all, it's putting its foot forward going, this can run the DLC that only came to, you know, the Xbox Series and the PS5. It had two performance modes. It ran at either 30 FPS or 40 FPS, depending on what graphics you were happy with. And yeah, it's clearly not looking as nice or running as nice as it would on something more powerful. The bit that surprised me was playing in handheld at 40 FPS. Because this thing has a 120 FPS screen, and specifically it supports variable refresh rate, which means if you get above a certain frame rate window on that 120 FPS screen, funnily enough, 40 FPS, it can do a lot to smooth out performance and make it look like it's running more smoothly than it is, by syncing up, only refreshing the screen when new frames are available. As a result, at 40 FPS, it's not that much more than 30. It looked way smoother than playing it at 30. And I feel like this is going to be the route that a lot of, like, big, ambitious third parties are going to end up going on Switch 2, is, yeah, on your TV, it's not going to run at 60, it's not going to be at 4K, it's going to look a little worse, it's going to run worse. It feels like way fewer compromises have had to be made to get this running on Switch 2 than any of the big Switch 1 ports did. And that's exciting to see at the system's launch. That it's like, even with that big DLC, it's like, no, this is running acceptably. And that 10 FPS difference on the handheld screen, like, it looks pretty decent. It looks decent enough. The one that I would put it alongside that was, like, that genuinely surprised me was Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 ran at a locked 60 FPS. I'd have struggled to tell you if that was the Xbox Series S port or not.
Uh-huh.
Like, It's not like, it's clearly not running at like 4K. It's not running at quite the same resolution as like the PS5 or the Series X. But if you told me this was like the series, like the entry level this generation Xbox running, I would have struggled to tell you whether that was correct or not. It looked good. It looked really good. They did a very good job of making sure that like any places where they were cutting back graphically were in the backgrounds, not on the characters that were fighting. Like, there's that level in Street Fighter 6 that's the British pub, and there's like a double-decker red bus in the background. Yeah, they cut some corners on like the resolution of the advertisement on the bus, but so that the characters in the foreground looked great and were running at 60. That was the other one where I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, it's playing in the same space as the current gen consoles. It's playing way better in that space than I expected it to, which was kind of impressive. Other than that, very quickly, GameCube games look a bit nicer. It'll be nice to have F-Zero with online multiplayer. There's new Kirby content. I enjoyed that Forgotten Lands. This sure is more of that, but with crystals everywhere. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they look nicer and they run well. That one forest with the Master Sword in it doesn't chug anymore. That's cool. There's a game called Switch 2 Welcome Tour. It's interesting if you're someone whose job is talking about video games from I'm kind of interested to play an interactive tutorial and learn some facts about the thing. It should have been a pack-in if it existed at all. There's no world in which there should be an upsell. I think it only costs $5. Even at $5, I think it's going to be... A lot of people are going to buy it and go, this feels like... It feels like I paid money to go to school. I've seen people comparing it to, like, Astrobot shipping on the PS5... Oh, Astro's Playroom shipping on PS5 as, like, a get-to-know the features of the system. That was a game. This is a series of mini-games stretched out by do you want to do some homework? But yeah, that's everything I've played from the Switch 2 stuff. Generally, I was very... it punched above its weight on where I expected it to. I'm excited that Nintendo's first-party stuff seems to be going, yeah, we sacrifice a little visual ambition to get 120 FPS modes available. I think that's pretty cool. I am intrigued, for sure. Yeah, is that everything we've played?
I do believe so. I was hoping to be able to talk about a game called Mudbourne, which looked like a cute little frog-rearing adventure game, but the controls they made no sense to me. So I don't even know why I'm bringing that up. So yeah, I'm done with that.
In that case, I got one... I'm going to throw in one news story this week, because this is just an opportunity to slag off an executive who has been shitty to the common everyday employee that is not a CEO. Have you seen any of the bullshit going on with teenagers attending the Minecraft movie?
No.
So here's the short version. You know how, like, adults will sometimes go to Rocky Horror Picture Show screenings that are, like, designed to be a little bit interactive? Or, like, they'll go to screenings of The Room and there's points where everyone throws spoons at the screen and shit like that.
Script, yeah. I know the kind of thing, yeah.
So, the Minecraft movie has kind of become one of those for, like, 14-year-olds. But to the degree of which it's like, Jack Black will say the words chicken jockey, and every teenager in the cinema throws full buckets of popcorn in all directions, so there's shit for the cinema workers to clean up. Oh, it's the bit where Jack Black's gonna fall in some water to not hit the ground so hard. I'll throw a bucket of water from the back of the theatre over other people sat in the screening. Shit like this. Like, genuinely, like, really fucking disruptive cinema behaviour. The director of the Minecraft movie was asked to if he had any response to this kind of behaviour. Clearly, with the hope being that he would be like, no, let's, it's great that you're having fun, but maybe be respectful of other theatre goers. Do you want to hear what his response was to all of the disruptive behaviour that was getting to the point that fucking police were having to be called to screenings?
I'm going to assume it doesn't show a respect for the employees and workers that have to deal with it.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
His quote to the New York Times, "It's way too funny.
Ugh.
It's been a total blast. I'm just laughing my brains out every time someone sends me a new video." Just the fact that people are making memories at the movies. That's what it's all about. That's why we do it. I could never have anticipated this level of passion and fun and craziness that's happening. No one's gonna get hurt from popcorn.
He should be made to clean up his local movie theatre on his own after after a day of showing that film.
Yeah, so let me give you his one last sentence, because to put the context in your head properly, imagine a screening where, like, 60-70% of people in that theatre have just thrown a full bucket of popcorn directly in the air, and now that's going to have to be cleaned up. Here's how his last little line about that. "Look, when I go to the movies with my kids, it's like a popcorn massacre that happens, and they're not throwing anything, but some of it ends up on the ground regardless."
Tell me you're out of touch without saying you're out of touch. That is so elitist and snobbish.
Right.
Like, you couldn't make yourself sound more fucking privileged. Well, there's many ways you could, but in this particular subject, fucking hell.
It's pretty fucking gross. It's gotten so bad, it's apparently gotten to the point that, like, multiple reports have happened of Jack Black showing up to screenings and walking, like, and going to the front of screenings to politely ask people not to throw their popcorn in the air and to, like, be respectful. Jack Black is having to just, like, go around local cinemas to be like, please don't throw popcorn. It's really rude to the staff that work here.
I mean, that's awesome. Like that.
Right?
That's showing some
something.
responsibility, a little bit of social responsibility.
Yeah, trying to do a bit of, like, hey, your love of me saying meme sentences is why you're doing this. I'm trying to put a little bit of I don't approve of the lengths you've gone to out into the universe. But, that CEO, goddamn. So, yeah, that'll do for this week, probably.
Yeah, I reckon so. Well, some people might want to settle. Popcorn's expensive. They charge you out the fucking nose. It's a waste of money on top of everything else.
It's a waste of money. It's a waste of money. Also, someone brought a live chicken into one of the screenings. That's just rude to the chicken. Don't make the chicken have to watch a film. They're not designed for that. They're designed for outside.
No, it'll blow their minds. Plus, they'll be looking at the thrown popcorn thinking, I could have fucking eaten that.
Right, that's corn. I love corn.
Or maybe that's it. Maybe if enough teenagers bring chickens, they'll clean up
the screen.
The popcorn. And, you know, then they'll have to bring in chicken farmers to deal with the chicken shit. And
we're doing a whole the old lady that swallowed a fly situation, are we?
Yeah. And then bring in city planners to run out the farmers. Right. Some people might want to settle in with their own bucket of popcorn and enjoy some other forms of entertaining media. And Laura, you may be in a position to provide some of that if you could tell us about what you do for a living.
I might just be, yeah. You can find all that stuff I do at Laura K Buzz pretty much everywhere. If you go to youtube.com/Laura K Buzz, you can find my big video about going to the Switch 2 hands-on is up on YouTube now, including footage that I did my best to capture with a makeshift strap my phone to my torso rig, so that's fun. Patreon.com/Laura K Buzz, that's what pays the bills. As little as $1 a month over there really helps. Look forward to next week. There will be a really big episode of Control Alt Access going up, in which we talk about all of the talks that went on over 2 days of GA Conf this year, the big game accessibility conference. We recorded the first half of it live, and it was nearly 50 minutes long. We still have day 2 to do, so look forward to that. What about you, Steph? Where are you on the internet? Where can people find what you're up to?
I can be supported at patreon.com/Jimquisition, which supports the web show and this podcast, and reviews on the Jimquisition.com. Our last review was Atomfall, which I think was quite an interesting read because it talks about, the stuff we talked about on here with the ice drain and everything. I should also have a review of Croc up either right now or soon. I stream when I can at Twitch TV/Jim Sterling. I have there are 2 games I'm involved with coming out soon. Quantum Witch on June 24th and Date Everything on, I want to say June 14th.
I think it's 17th. I might be wrong.
Okay. One of the dates in June. So yeah, there's an excellent dating sim that made social media blow up called Date Everything, and Quantum Witch, which is, I'm just immensely proud of it. I talked about on Blue Sky, I did a thread talking about how my years spent in Mississippi on the Bible Belt, and also sort of dealing with a lot of long-term emotional abuse, went into my writing for that game. Which is a very light-hearted and funny game, but there is some dark influence going into some of its themes. I'm very proud.
I just
of it.
confirmed. It is June 17th. I remembered that because it's Team 17.
Ah, yeah.
Team 17, June 17.
Well thought.
So I got a little memory device.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. So yeah, June 17th, Date Everything. June 24th, Quantum Witch, and of course there's not even any point doing no. I was about to say stuff out, like Vampire Survivor stuff's out all the time. There was just this past week a new update. It's free. It's in association with Emerald Saga, of all games, and it's a sort of 2 parts that are completely not related.
There's the Coop update and the new adventure mode content, but also the saga content just all happening.
Yeah. They've got adventure modes for some of the DLC, and the Coop and the Emerald Saga content. And yes, I did the bestiaries for those.
Ooh.
The Coop ones are all me. Sorry about the chicken puns. One thing with the Saga one and the Castlevania one, I'm learning that companies like my writing, but companies are companies, so some of the stuff in there is not me, and I only point that out because Neurodivergence wants to make sure that I'm credited for what I've done. But anyway,
don't worry. That is very much how these things go. You do your work, and then some of it makes it into the product.
Well, yeah, and I'm not complaining. It really is just my sense of credit where it's due. Speaking, but I did.
I get you.
I think I've not double checked everything, but I think most of the writing in the Emerald Saga bestiary is mine. So yeah, I mean, I'm just glad that Parkour keeps me in work. It's nice.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm away from the wrestling ring for a little bit. Should be coming back in the summer now, because I think a company I had dates lined up with aren't operating anymore. Welcome to Indie Wrestling. So I will see you next week, as will Laura, as will Conrad. We will see you. Thank you for supporting us. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.